Okay. Hi. Okay, so we're gonna try something a little bit different today. I'm not gonna really do a sit down. I mean, I might, I don't know. I'm filming in, this is kind of my normal location. I want to kind of like reorganize my reading space, and because this is honestly, this is like my little library personal area where I have most of my bookshelves, and like I usually do yoga in here. It's like a yoga room. Clearly I have a weight plate over there. Sometimes I'll do warm-ups for lifting. But yeah, it's just kind of like disorganized, and I thought it might be fun to do like a little video where I figure out what I'm doing here and I figure out how I want this space to look, because I haven't really been loving it. So anyways, I'm gonna take you along that process. I actually found this 6-penny Neva round daybed chair on Marketplace. I was so excited because I've been looking for one of these forever, and they're like $3,000 on their website. So I was like really excited when I saw it. I love to buy stuff on Marketplace. You find like the best deals, obviously. I'm a big proponent of not paying full price for stuff. So I'm not entirely convinced about the fur cover on that thing. It's very cozy though. Like the thing is, I'm a little bit worried that I'm gonna get addicted to how cozy it feels. It doesn't look, it's not really like my vibe. Anyway, so I'm gonna hopefully rearrange stuff to where I feel like it feels a little more like me in here. And maybe I'm gonna like try and find a different cover, because even like the covers on that website are $600, which is the price of an entirely new chair. Not from them, but from somebody else. Anyways, I can wait for a sale, I guess. Maybe I'll do that. All right, so the big question I have is whether or not that chair is gonna stay facing there, or if it's gonna come over to this other side. So I'm gonna kind of like play around with how I want it positioned. All right, so I moved it over to in front of my like standing bookshelves, and I'm not really like digging that look. Also, if I sit in the chair there, I don't have a great view of the water because that's kind of pointing at my neighbor's house over there. If it points that way, I have more of like an open view of the water. So I think I'm gonna keep it over there. The only problem is this side table that is tiered. That's like an antique from my family. And I don't really love that. The chair I used to have there was square, and that's round. And now I feel like round and round, it's like not giving what I want it to give. So I might try, or it's too tall. I don't know. Anyways, I'm gonna play around with how that looks. Because honestly, that gives me like a really nice background when I'm filming videos. I usually film in that corner. And I also I'll have a lamp choice. So I will show you the two different lamps that I'm gonna put in that corner. So this is the first lamp. Very cute, very unique, but it doesn't have a lot of height on it, and I kind of feel like maybe I need height. I found this other one a couple weeks ago while I was out, which I really like the vibe of. We love a pleated shade, and I feel like it would look really cute in the corner over there. So right now I'm leaning towards this one. I need to put a bulb in it and get it in the corner, which I'll do now. All right, a bit of a problem. The bulbs I have are 10 watts, and I saw that lamp says max 7 watts. do I care? All right, so we have a bit of a problem because I feel like the lamp is too short and I need to find something to put it up on. Which means I need to find some big books. It was sitting on some cookbooks that are only over there because there's another cabinet that I usually keep all my cookbooks on. And I don't want to leave the cookbooks under light because it's not functional. So that's where we are right now. All right, I went and pulled a few different books because the cookbooks just were not working there. So got my new stack of some lifestyle books because I want big, thick books that, you know, give height. And Story by Robert McKee. Such a good book on story structure. Highly recommend. I just realized this is going to be hell to edit. Here we are. Alright, so I kind of feel like this might be as good as it's going to get. I did pull some artwork for that corner, but I think everything I own is going to be quite too big. I have a lot of pieces left over from our house in Missouri. It was very big, and I had tons of art. And there's just not enough space in here for it all, so I kind of have a lot in storage. So I pulled Reading Girl, which I love. I'm not obsessed with this frame anymore. It feels very dated. So I pulled a modern frame to reframe it, but I think that is going to be too big. I don't really want to move my big piece here, my Cupid piece, which my grandmother gifted to me because that's a professionally framed piece from an art gallery. So I might just leave. I have a Totoro painting that I think would go really well in that corner and I can't find it. I also have a star whale. My husband bought me a hand painted star whale piece, which I also can't find that one, but I know it's here somewhere. So maybe I'll do another video when I pick the art piece for that corner. We're just gonna put a pen in that and choose something later. Okay, so I think I have something that's gonna work for now. Yeah, I guess let's get into what I want to talk about. I have my AirPods in, which I think I'm gonna leave in, and I'm gonna put some calming, I don't know, I'm into this like bilateral stimulation thing my therapist has me on. And I want to see if it maybe like helps while I am filming. Because that could be interesting, right? Just gonna put it on really lightly. I mean, you won't hear it, but I will. Something I've been working a lot on lately is figuring out how to balance my energy with my creative production. I think right now, especially, it's been very difficult for me to actually give myself the space to create when it kind of feels like, what's the point in the grand scheme of things? And given everything that's going on in the world, just tuning into everything almost feels like it takes most of my energy, and that has not really been sustainable for me, especially when I'm at this phase where I'm trying to restructure what it means to be productive for myself as a writer and as a graphic designer, and ultimately as a content creator, because I'm trying to be more present here on YouTube. I've been making reels and like TikToks and things to try and, dip my toe into those kinds of waters and build audiences on different platforms. And honestly, that has been so difficult. I think that would be difficult even if I wasn't dealing with everything that's going on in the world, right? Like even if everything in my life and everything around me was absolutely perfect, that balance would still be difficult. It would still be hard to figure out what works for me and what works for my personal energy output. And I think I just wanted to take some time to sit down and discuss how I go about balancing my energy for each of my days and throughout the week, as a full-time author. I do have another business where I do graphic design, so I have to work that into my schedule. There are plenty of other things that are important to me beyond just writing. Shocking, I know. But I just want to be honest about the fact that if you're looking for becoming a full-time author and you think it means writing 24/7, it definitely doesn't. And really, this has been a journey of figuring out how to best honor my values and my goals and my consistency while still making time for rest and replenishment, because that is as important as the productivity itself. As I've mentioned in previous videos, rest and relaxation is one of my big goals for this year. I want to make sure that I'm carving out time to refill my creative wells and not just like pushing myself so hard when it comes to my creativity and what I'm putting out, because I think that that's what led to my burnout previously. I am definitely a perfectionist, and I am learning to work with that energy instead of trying to like fight it and pretend like I don't have this desire to make everything perfect from the start. I recently read The Perfectionist Guide to Losing Control, which was absolutely fabulous and kind of transformed the way that I think about that aspect of myself. If you identify with that in any way, I highly recommend you try to pick up that book, and it's a great audiobook too. I will put the link in the description box below if you're interested. But it has really been a game changer for how I'm trying to approach not only my writing, but everything in my life, because that does work its way into every aspect of everything that I'm doing. I'm trying to learn to really hone in on the flow of my energy and work with the ebbs and flows, as opposed to just forcing myself to constantly be in an on position, to approach this from like a traditional 9-to-5 mentality. Because realistically, when you're working for yourself, you don't have to do that. You can create whatever schedule works best for you. And if that means on some days you're productive for 3 hours and on others you're productive for 12, that's totally fine and normal. As a matter of fact, I would say that's more natural, because it's really like working with you personally and working with your energy as it exists in reality, as opposed to trying to like force yourself into some, preconceived capitalistic idea of what a work week looks like and what a work day looks like. And honestly, that itself, that concept has been kind of hard for me, because on the outside, you'd think that, not on the outside, just like full stop. I love control. I love the concept of I have specific rules, and if I follow those rules, I will achieve what I want to achieve. I want there to be a checklist that if I just follow the checklist, it will equal success. And that's not realistic. And I'm learning that life doesn't work that way, especially as a creative. Being a full-time author means that the only person that I'm answering to is myself. And being an indie author especially, I don't have a team of people that are constantly checking in with me and making sure that I'm hitting my deadlines and sending pages and doing all of those elements, because I'm the one who's creating that publishing schedule for myself, and I'm the one who keeps myself accountable. There's no one standing over me and managing my energy output except myself. There are no expectations or deadlines placed on me except for the ones that I place on myself, which is really freeing, but it can be difficult in its own way. One thing I've been reflecting on a lot is what productivity even means to me, what success even means to me, because honestly, I feel like that can change from person to person. And for a while, I thought that it just meant getting a certain word count goal in each day and, checking off tasks on my to-do list for the day and for the week and for the month and for the year. But I don't really think that's what I'm after. I think ultimately success, as far as I'm looking for it, is going to come from a sense of fulfillment. It's going to come from being consistent and steadily going after the goals that I have put in place for myself that are in line with my values. Because this realization has come from doing a lot of values work. I've really focused on defining my values for myself this year, which is something I do it annually when I sit down to kind of plan out my goals for the year. And I figure out what my values are and I make sure that I honor those in some way, at least every day, definitely every week, so that I have this consistent output of energy that is in line with the person that I want to be. If you're not familiar with values work, it's pretty easy to get into it. You can just Google values quiz. I'll put a link to the one that I use in the description box, which will walk you through kind of a this or that scenario until you kind of narrow down to 5. I know people recommend anywhere from 3 to 5 values when you do kind of work like this. And this is something that I do every year to make sure that I'm aware of the things that I want to focus on, of the things that I currently find important in my life. And it helps not only hone in what I want to put my energy towards for the year, but it's also fascinating to see how my values change as I go from year to year, because we don't always maintain the same values. There are some that are consistent for me, but in a big way, different things become more important to you as you move throughout your life. So I narrowed down these themes that are important to me and I make sure that I honor them, if not all of them every day, at least a few of them, so that I can feel this sense of accomplishment and fulfillment. And I do that through values like movement or creativity or friendship or spirituality, or insert whatever value you've decided that you want to focus on. As a full-time writer, you would think that I would be spending literally all of my time on books. I would be reading books, I would be writing books, and I would be editing books, and I'd be making content about books, etc., etc. But if I did that, it would mean neglecting everything else in my life. And that leads to this imbalance of focus, and it ultimately, even though I love books and I love doing everything associated with storytelling, and I love writing and I love making this content, if I focus entirely on that, the other elements in my life that are important, like movement or like my relationship or friendship or family or whatever, like all of that stuff suffers, because then all of my energy is going towards this one aspect of my life. So you can see why it's become so important to me, not only to define these values for myself, but to make sure that I'm honoring each of them, not necessarily equally, but definitely honoring them in some way each day and each week and each month, so that I feel this sense of accomplishment in my everyday life. And that means that I'm constantly balancing all the things that matter to me, which right now is some combination of writing and graphic design and movement and community and my paid work. But that being said, when it comes to organizing my week and figuring out how I want to balance my energy, I've learned that not everything can happen every single day. Like I've been saying, I don't necessarily make sure that I'm working on every individual value every single day. That's not sustainable either, because then you don't have any meaningful hyper fixation or like hyper focus in order to create something. Like I couldn't sit there and spend 4 hours writing and then 4 hours going on a hike and then 4 hours. I mean, I guess I could, but it would require so much of my energy that I would not be putting out the level of quality that I want in each of these aspects of my life. And all that being said, I do still have to pay the bills. And right now, at least, the thing that brings me the most money is my business as a graphic designer. I do freelance graphic design work. So that tends to prioritize each of my day. I don't necessarily have that work every single day, but it is definitely the thing that I focus on first, because I want to get into my computer first thing in the morning, check emails, do those kinds of things, and get all of those items off of my plate. Because if I have things sitting in the back of my head where I know a client is maybe waiting on a response, I can't give my full energy to something like writing a new chapter if I know that that work is sitting there. So that is absolutely the first thing that I focus on. Getting those tasks out of the way frees up the mental space needed for me to give my entire focus to whatever else is on my plate for that day. So the next thing that I do is I do like to prioritize my energy output. I think about the tasks that I'd like to accomplish that day, and I will put them in order of whatever takes the most of my energy. For instance, I've been lifting a lot of weights lately. That's become a regular part of my routine, but I know that if I have a really long weightlifting session, that's going to take so much of my physical energy and time that by the time I finish with that, I might not have enough energy left to, say, film a video like I'm doing right now. I kind of thought I was going to film this yesterday, but I had a big weightlifting session. I did that and I was so drained that I didn't have the energy to even set up my camera. So if I'm more honest about myself about how much energy each of these tasks is going to take, I won't layer them on top of one another and have two, one after the other, because that will lead to me not finishing both. And then I feel like a failure, and then I kind of put my camera to the side and never pick it up again. And that's not sustainable either. So when I sit down to plan out my week, I kind of make sure that I chunk these tasks according to the amount of energy that I know that they're going to take. So if I have a main task that I know is going to take a lot of energy, I will put that as my main goal for a given day, whether that be filming a video, whether that be doing a big workout, whether that is spending 3 hours editing a whole chapter, because I know that that takes a lot of my energy. And then I pair that with some type of accessory work that I know takes less of my energy. That would be things like regular tasks. Keeping my house clean is one of my priorities and my values. So I will throw in maybe doing laundry, folding clothes, things that don't take a lot of mental energy from me. That's even stuff like transferring B-roll over from my camera to my computer, organizing files, checking emails can go along with that. I will just throw those in as my supplementary work that still is in line with my values, so I get a big task out of the way, and then I fill up the empty space with accessory work that doesn't take as much of my energy to finish. Because if I try to film a video and I sit here and hyper focus on this for an entire hour, and then I go up and try and write for 3 hours, I don't think that work is going to be any good, and I will be exhausted. And then the next day I'm more likely to just have an entire rest day, which goes into this cycle of imbalance, right? So I'm putting so much energy into one day and then I'm doing nothing. I'm having a full, rot day the next day. And that's not sustainable for me. It doesn't make me feel very good. So I try and do this in a more cohesive and functional, keeping the waves of my energy kind of low. So I've got little dips and little highs, as opposed to having a huge expenditure and then a huge drop, because I think that is what leads to burnout ultimately, because I would be just slingshotting myself back and forth between intense productivity. I'm working 15 hours a day on my work, and then I have the next day where I do absolutely nothing. And that doesn't really work for me. This approach has really allowed me to honor my energy and stay in creative flow without becoming overwhelmed and without hitting a wall that I feel like I can't get over. It's a much more intuitive approach to my energy and helps carry me through the things that are really important to me. And it helps me honor my values and the things that I want to make up my life. And honestly, a lot of the things that are important to me don't have an instant payoff. And that hit of dopamine when I check something off of my to-do list is also super valid. But if I'm sitting down to write a book, I'm not going to be able to check that off my to-do list for months at a time. Even something like weightlifting, I am not going to be able to really see progress in that immediately. And if my entire life is comprised of these goals that will take so much time to accomplish, I don't get that kind of instant hit of dopamine. So that's also another reason that I really like to pair in these accessory tasks daily, so that I can fully check them off. Because if I say I'm gonna wash the dishes, that takes me 15 minutes and it's fully done, right? So if I pair in writing 1,000 words a day, going for a little hike, and washing dishes, I have some things on my plate that are long-term goals, and then I have some things that are short-term goals that are all aligned in some way, shape, or form with some type of value that I hold close to myself. Ultimately, this leads to a really nice balance of self-esteem because I'm working on long-term projects, things that are really hard, that take dedication and perseverance. But then I also have like easier tasks that I can accomplish for the day that make me feel really good about myself in the moment. But when I talk about my life as an author and a writer, I also want to illustrate that rest and relaxation are just as important as the work itself. And I don't think I've really come to understand that much until I had my little 2-year hiatus, because I think maybe I thought before that I could just push myself through harder times and that it would get better. But ultimately, I think that you need to make space to rest. You need to make space to take naps and to have days where you do veg and rot and compost and just kind of dissociate, because that's as important as the work itself. And I would say for creatives, it's even more important because our energy output is something that is coming from inside of us. And we're really trying to illustrate something about ourselves in our work. And that itself is so draining energetically and emotionally that if you don't carve out space in your schedule, and I'm talking like daily, to meditate or, do restorative yoga or just literally sleeping, making sure you get enough sleep, making sure that you're not draining yourself, it will begin to affect your work because your work is a part of yourself. And if you have no energy to give, then the work itself is going to be torture because you're forcing yourself to sit with some part of yourself. And if that is not restored and if that part of you doesn't have energy, it's going to be very difficult to create any type of art, whether that be writing or anything else creative. Okay, so my battery ran out, so that's fun. That's never happened to me, but here we are. And honestly, it would be really easy for me to fall into this idea of that I need to create as much as possible. I need to write as much as possible and put out as many books as I can, because the more books that I put out, the more money I'll make and the more successful I will seem to other people. But that's not sustainable in any way for me. And it's ultimately like not what I want to do. I don't want to furiously produce as much as I can. I want to create things that mean something to me, that reflect a part of me, and I want to create things that are a reflection of who I am and the things that I've learned in my life. And ultimately, I want to create books that I personally would want to read. And that doesn't mean producing as much as I can furiously for as long as I can until I burn out. That's just not sustainable, and it's not something that's going to honor my energy. And I could even say that about videos. Like I could be producing 2 videos a week and that would shoot my channel up just by virtue of the consistency and the output. But I don't really want to do that to myself. I want to create videos when I'm inspired to create them and talk about things that I'm going through and the things that I'm personally thinking about as a writer, not necessarily, push myself into this concept of it's a business and I just need to put my nose to the grindstone and, churn out as much as I can, because that is going to create work that I'm not necessarily proud of. And when I look at that work, all I'm going to remember is how torturous it was to create it. And I don't want that. I want to enjoy the process of making my art, whether that be videos, whether that be writing books, whether that even be like my graphic design work. I don't love forcing my energy to fit some preconceived idea of conformity for productivity. I really want to focus on honoring myself this year. I want to focus on the natural ways that my energy flows. I want to make sure that I'm honoring not only my abilities, but I'm honoring the energy, the parts of myself that it takes to produce my creative work. I want to honor the pieces of myself that I am giving to my writing. And that means being really aware, being really in tune with my energy. It means being really aware of who I am and where I am and what I'm feeling at any given time. And that's really how I want to go about managing my week, managing my output as a writer. So when I sit down to plan out my week, I'm taking these things into consideration. And really, it comes down to this concept of just slowing myself down. Being an author means living fully in the awareness and mindfulness of my energy so that I don't waste it, so that I create stories that truly matter and honor my best self as a creative. I think if you're looking for a way to manage your creative energy, and maybe if you have your eyes set on being a full-time author, you need to be aware of this concept that it's not just about being able to write 100% of your time. Like, that's great, and I've definitely done that, especially when I get close to deadlines that I've placed for myself and I want to get things done and I want to get serious word counts in. But I am very aware that that is not sustainable. Like, yeah, I can write. I've had a 20,000 word day before, but I'm pretty sure I gave myself carpal tunnel. So I don't recommend that. And I am very aware that that is not something that I can do with every time I sit down to finish and write a book. And I am still personally a work in progress, because this method that I'm talking about today is relatively new for me. It's something that I've been working a lot on in therapy, and it's something that I've spent a lot of time thinking about and figuring out how to best align myself with the work that I want to finish this year and the things that I want to accomplish. So when you sit down to think about what your life would be like, or if you currently are a full-time creative or a full-time author yourself, I just really encourage you to slow down yourself and really think about your values and try and be as mindful as you can about your personal energy output, because this is what is working for me. It's not necessarily what's going to work for everybody. And you have to be honest with yourself about what is going to make you feel like your best creative self, what is going to help you sustain your work, what is going to be able to give enough back to yourself and give yourself enough space so that what you're creating is authentic for you, but is also sustainable enough to achieve these long-term goals and is also balanced with your everyday life. This formula is different for every one of us, and it just takes a lot of introspection to figure out what works best. Like, I'm cognizant of the deadlines that I place on myself, but I'm trying to be actively flexible with that. Some days I have the capacity to write 5,000 words. Some days I don't have time to do any because I've had other bigger tasks on my plate for that day. And I just have to be okay with the malleability of my creative life. I guess the thing that I want to say is that I don't freak out if every single day of my life is not fully centered around writing. And it's not meant to be, because we are just like living our lives, right? Like, I am a writer, I am a full-time writer, but that is not everything that I do every single second of every single day. And that's okay, because I contain multitudes. We all have lives, and the point of creativity is just figuring out a way to work that creativity organically into yours. I personally want to write books for the rest of my life. And the only way that that's going to work out in the long term is making sure that I don't have these like intense bursts of hyperfixation that entirely burn me out. And I have a more sustainable, holistic, organic way of writing each day in a way that honors the rest of the things that I have going on in my life and the other values in my life that are important to me, not just creativity. If you have other tips for the way that you go about balancing your creative life or balancing your energy as you write or as you create any type of art, please let me know in the comments below, because I'm always interested to hear how other people are dealing with this and how other people go about organizing their days and their weeks, because I think that we can all learn from each other and just figure out what works best for us by seeing what other people are doing. I know that's how I go about it. I didn't come up with these ideas by myself. It comes from reading a lot of books. It comes from talking to a lot of people. A lot of it comes from my writing group, community, things like that. So yeah, just let me know your approach. If you found this video relatable or it resonated with you in any way, please hit that like and subscribe button so you can stay up to date on everything new that I'm putting out. It's really helpful to me and I would greatly appreciate it. Until next time, I will see you around because this video took a lot of my energy and I still have to go to writing group tonight. So I'm probably gonna go have a glass of water, make some tea, eat some lunch, and just like take an hour to myself to recharge before I have to go give some energy to being social and to writing, because those two take a lot out of me. And I know I've got that in my schedule later today. So until next time, I will see you around. Bye.